how to truly release your piriformis and the other muscles you must also release when you attend to your piriformis, coming up next. Poor piriformis gets blamed for everything, especially things having to do with sciatica. Yes, piriformis may be a piece of your puzzle, but is only a piece. One of the mistakes that I see people do all the time is just doing some work on their piriformis or just trying to stretch that dang thing so much that actually stretching doesn't really work. It doesn't really help. And you must also release the other muscles that are contributing to that lateral rotation of the hip, or that foot or that hip turning out, that leg rotating out. You see, piriformis is implicated in a lot of sciatica because where the piriformis attaches onto the sacrum, a little edge of the sciatic nerve comes along that attachment site. So yes, when there is a lot of compression in the piriformis, yes, it can put some pressure on that sciatic nerve. My experience in the thousands of people I've worked with in the last 30 years is that piriformis is maybe a piece, but it is not the ultimate. Also, I see a lot of people trying to fix their one leg is rotated out more than the other by just stretching their piriformis, or even doing some release work on the piriformis, but they're ignoring 6 other key muscles. And frankly, there are even more muscles that create that rotation that assists piriformis in its job. You see, piriformis is a lateral hip rotator. It rotates the femur outward. There are 6 deep hip rotators called the deep 6 collectively. They're obturators, gemelli, they have all kinds of funny names. They live below the piriformis along the back of that hip joint, and they are going to be playing a piece of this symphony of the causes of that lateral hip rotation. So if you release the piriformis, great, but if you don't release those other 6 hip rotators, those lateral hip rotators below it and right behind where the femur goes into the socket, then those 6 muscles might then just continue to be stuck, keep pulling that femur out and reactivate the tension and the trigger points in the piriformis. This part is almost always overlooked. As a matter of fact, I've never once met anyone that said they were addressing their piriformis and the deep 6 lateral hip rotators. So you're gonna learn that here right now. I'm going to show you how to release your piriformis. There's 2 main trigger points in the piriformis muscle, one right at the sacrum, one right at the outer edge of the hip socket. And then we're gonna drop down into those deep 6 lateral hip rotators so you can get a full and complete release in your piriformis. Now there's one other piece that is crucial. You have to stay to the end to watch, because then I'm going to show you the proper way to stretch that piriformis and those lateral hip rotators so you're actually stretching them well without freaking them out, because there's sensory receptors inside muscles that are detecting if you go too fast, if you go too far, if you go too long. All of those happen when you're passively stretching. So I'm going to show you a way to avoid all of that, get a real and true excellent stretch in the piriformis and the other deep 6 lateral hip rotators. So let's go to the wall and do that now. So now for the self trigger point release work of the piriformis and the deep 6 lateral hip rotators. I'm going to demonstrate this on the right side, and I'm going to use the soft FreeBody ball. Now, when you get into those deep 6 lateral hip rotators, you are not going to want anything more than this soft ball. And even with piriformis, this ball is so good for tissues that are really aggravated, have a lot of tension. They avoid the body protecting itself from intense pressure. So check out my video on why never to use a lacrosse ball in your body. We'll put the link down in the description, but you want to have a soft ball. Piriformis is a muscle that goes from the sacrum to the outer edge of the pelvis, or of the hip joint. So I'm going to show you that. Here's the sacrum in the middle. The top rim of the pelvis is all the way up here. So we want to get down about halfway down the sacrum. Right there is piriformis, right next to the sacrum, and it goes laterally outward to the greater trochanter of the femur. So I'm going to show you how to get that on the floor with the soft ball. Oh, it's so good. Okay. Lay down on the floor, knees bent, feet on the floor. Take the soft ball in your right hand. Imagine your buttocks as a bullseye. I'm imagining there's a bullseye drawn on the right butt cheek. I want to get the ball right in the center of that bullseye. So I kind of lifted myself on it. I'm right in the center of that bullseye, and I'm right on the piriformis. So I drop my knees a little to the right toward the side that I'm releasing, and I rock my hips side to side. Now, when you rock your hips side to side, you are tracing the piriformis. If you're not sure if you have it quite, then you might go up and down along the sacrum until you find a spot that is tender. There's your piriformis. It's about halfway down the sacrum from top to bottom. Now I'm letting my knees drop to the right toward the side the ball is on, and that's going to put pressure on that ball. When you're doing self-trigger point release, you want to be breathing freely and easily, so avoid holding your breath, and you also want to be able to relax your body. If you're like this, and you're holding your breath, or you're getting mad at me, or your eyes are real wide, or you're clenching your jaw, then you're not relaxed, and your body is going to be protecting itself. It means it's too much pressure. So just back off the knees a little bit. Take less pressure. Okay, I'm going to drop my knees back on. That feels like right pressure for me. I'm just going to wag a little side to side, make little circles, make sure I'm right on the apex of that tension, sinking down. I'm right next to the sacrum. I'm going to take one more belly breath. So good. Now I'm going to go side to side. Wag the tail side to side now. You're tracing along piriformis, and you'll notice that it might feel a little aggravated through the whole thing, but right as you scoot your butt to the left and the ball comes to the outer edge of the piriformis right behind the hip joint, at the back of the hip joint, you'll notice there's another tender spot there. Trigger point number 2 in the piriformis. Sinking my body down. If it's too much pressure, just kind of lift the knees off the ball. Let them drop if that feels okay to you. Sinking down again. You could go a little up and down. Sometimes the piriformis goes downward a little bit toward the feet. So just kind of noticing everyone's anatomy is slightly different. So you just want to kind of go up and down, make sure you're right on that special spot. Now you can wave this knee. So I'm on the right side. I'm going to take that right knee or the bottom knee and wave it. That's going to that pin on the trigger point, and then activating and stretching the muscle as you lay on it and put that pressure helps the muscle to release. It pins that trigger point, engages more of the muscle to do the work, helps tone down that trigger point. Such a really helpful technique. So good. Mine's already better. Feels so much better. So now to do the lateral, the deep 6 lateral hip rotators, often the missing piece in the piriformis work. You're going to roll off the ball, lift yourself up onto your hands, and then lift yourself back onto the ball. Now my knees are off to the side a little bit, off to the right, and I'm rolling along the back edge of the hip, of that hip socket. You see that ball in there? I'm right along the very back. I can feel that ball rolling along my tender spots right there in those lateral, deep 6 lateral hip rotators. So now here's the thing. You want to stay. I want to show you where I am. I am right here at the back of the hip joint, and I'm going down in between my sitting bone and the back edge of the hip joint. I'm not over here, I'm not up here, I'm all the way down here. And by holding my weight up like this, now I can really get the right angle to get those points. I can feel as I go down, another reason why you want the soft ball, I can feel that if I wag side to side, the ball on the inside is connected with my sitting bone, and on the outside is connecting with the back edge of the femur. So I'm rolling up in that space. That's where the deep 6 lateral hip rotators live. Going up and down. It's so good. Wag the tail a little bit. All right. You can do this waving of the knee again. Notice how far down that ball is. All the way at the bottom of the buttocks. 5, 4, it's already better. 3, 2, and 1. So good. Now you're going to get off that softball, put it back in your little box. Come down onto the floor, knees bent, feet on the floor, arms out wide, and just do some windshield wipers. Notice my feet are about mat distance apart. That actually gives me a deeper stretch through that piriformis. This is a really helpful movement break to take throughout your day. Little windshield wipers. I can feel the resistance. I can feel my left knee doesn't want to drop, but then I go this way, and I can look and see and feel my right knee drops more easily because these tissues are released and they're allowing that knee to drop closer to the floor. Just going to do a couple more windshield wipers. Your windshield wipers can be slower. That's totally fine. Pain-free range of motion always and regularly. All right, now we're going to come back up to sit. You might go into a quick little flip-flop again, like we did a little while ago in this playlist. So that's it. There's your release of piriformis and the deep 6 lateral hip rotators. When I first started doing that, when I was recovering from sciatica, it was very painful and very tender. Bless that soft ball. Now that I have done it for years, I still get trigger points in there. Trigger points are just what the body does, but they clear really fast. I make sure I'm hydrated. I make sure I move regularly. I take my movement breaks. I make sure I'm breathing, and I know right where to go. And now you do too. So thanks for watching. Remember to join me live this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, True versus False Sciatica, and a live Q&A. Come with your questions. I want to help you get rid of sciatica for good. See you in the next video.